Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Duncan and today I'm going to be unboxing my new Intrepid 8x10 camera. This camera has just arrived and in this video we're going to be unboxing it, having a look at the various components, putting the camera together, and I'm going to give you my first impressions. So, Intrepid. They're a small company based in the UK. They're on the south coast in Brighton, and they make a number of large format cameras. They make 5.4, 5.7 and 10.8, and they make their cameras essentially from a combination of aluminium and either plywood or 3D printed components. Now I've chosen the 10.8 version. When you buy for an Intrepid, you can't just buy these things off the shelf. They will make them to order. So consequently, there's quite a long lead time between purchasing and actually acquiring. So you might have to wait 5 or 6 weeks for your camera to actually turn up. So in the meantime, while I was waiting for this to arrive, I managed to acquire all the other bits and pieces I needed to have a go at 10.8, to move up from 5x4 to 10x8 inches. I've got some Ilford HP5. I've got some large format 10x8 dark slides, and I've also got a couple of lenses. I bought this Schneider 240, which came on a lens panel, which allegedly is the right size for this particular camera. And I've also bought this monster of a Schneider 300. So we'll see how we get on with those. I'm just going to open this up with a pair of scissors. I try not to use a craft knife when I'm unboxing in case I do accidentally damage some of the material inside. Don't think that's going to happen here though. This looks like some very substantial packaging. So let's open this up and see what we've got. First of all, we've got some nice eco packaging. What have we got here? This is my delivery note. So I bought a 10.8 lens board, a Fresnel screen and the camera itself. So I bought a lens board to take this 300mm lens. This is interesting. This piece here, this is a focusing extension. We'll come to that a bit later on. I've got a nice little postcard from Intrepid. Thanks very much. I'm going to lift this out and we'll move the box off to one side. Here's the 10.8 lens panel, and this should be the right size for this particular lens. This is made of what looks like high quality aluminium. Yeah, that looks really nice actually. That's quite substantial. I thought it might be 3D printed, but actually it's not. So it's nice and substantial, and that's going to help because this is a monster of a lens. Here we go, and here's the camera itself. The next thing to do then is to put the camera onto a tripod, and then I can show you how the camera is assembled, how the camera controls work, and I can give you some indication of my overall impressions of the build quality and the design of the Intrepid 8x10 Mark III camera. Before I do that though, please think about subscribing to the channel. Any subscriptions, likes and comments help me to grow the channel and produce more content like this in the future. Okay, let's get this on a tripod. So before we go on, I just want to point out that this is an entirely independent review. I'm not sponsored by Intrepid or anybody else for that matter. This is a camera that I bought with my own hard-earned cash. The first thing that strikes me about it is it's very, very light. It weighs about 2.8 kilograms, about 6 pounds. In actual fact, it's lighter than my 5.4 field camera, my MPP. So I shouldn't have any trouble with transporting the camera to and from location and worrying about the weight. So I'm going to put it onto a tripod. I've screwed my tripod bush into the base plate here. This is made of thick aluminium. I understand this has been upgraded for the Mark III version to a thicker aluminium, and it's very, very strong, very, very solid. So I'll click that onto the tripod. There we go. And then I'm going to open the camera up. We have 4 screws, and then we're going to lift up the back standard. If I take it beyond vertical and then push it forward again, it should kind of click into place and then be perfectly perpendicular between the back and the baseboard. Tighten those up, and I'm going to swing it round, and I'm going to put the front standard, lift the front standard up, and on the base of the camera there are a series of threaded holes. And the standard is bolted to one of these threaded holes. Which one you choose depends on the focal length of the lens you're using. So I'm going to use the second one in because I'm going to put on my big 300mm lens. So let me screw that in. I also noticed that there are some markings on the front standard here which enable me to line it up with the base in relation to shift and in relation to swing. So next I'm going to put my lens on, and I've mounted this on the Intrepid's own lens board, and that just snaps in much the same as any other large format camera, and that's in there really nice and solid. I'm quite pleased with how solid this front standard is, as I had worries about this lens being possibly too big and too heavy for it, but it doesn't seem to have any trouble with it at all. It's absolutely fine. So to raise the front standard, we undo the inner knobs on these 2 controls here, and then we can slide the standard up, lock those into position, and then these outer controls are in effect the tilt control. So I'll slacken those off, and then I can tilt the lens backwards and forwards. It will snap into its 0 position. There's a little kind of indent. I'm not quite sure how it's done, but a little kind of indent which we feel it click into position, which is great. So on the front standard I've got a full range of movements. On the rear standard I've only got tilt. If I slacken off these knobs again and unclick it, I should be able to tilt this forward, and I should also be able to tilt it back. But that is it for rear standard movements. Focusing then, that happens down here at the base of the camera. This is a system where I just turn this knob and it simply racks out the front standard. I like the idea of the focusing here rather than around here as it might be on some other cameras. I think this is going to be easier to operate underneath the dark cloth. And this brings me back to the focusing extension that I mentioned earlier on. Intrepid provided me with this, which is a 3D printed extension that fits onto that focusing control and enables you to focus more smoothly and more finitely because it's a larger diameter and it's stepped away from the camera body. So that's quite a useful addition. So when it comes to loading the film holders, some people have suggested that these cameras can be a bit tricky, and a sort of cantilever design might have been better than the spring-loaded back design that Intrepid have gone with. That might be the case. I've had a couple of quick goes with it, and yes, it is quite stiff, but I don't think it's particularly problematic. Obviously the camera's being wobbled about a bit whilst you're putting the dark slide in, and you need to make sure that everything is super tight, otherwise it's going to shift. But it seems to go in and out without too much grief. So the latest models of the 4x5 and 5x7 Intrepid have rotating backs, but the 10x8 doesn't. In order to switch between portrait and landscape mode, what we need to do is unlock these 2 little wheels here, and then we pull the back off. And the back is actually held on with very strong magnets. Turn it through 90 degrees, drop it back onto the bottom, and you'll hear it snap into place. These magnets are really, really strong. When I first tried this, I thought I was doing it wrong because I was concerned about how much energy I was using to try and pull the back off, and I thought I might be making it a mistake. But in actual fact, it's simply that the magnets are very strong, which is good because we obviously don't want the back to fall off. Once it's Turned around, we can just rotate these locks again, belt and braces, and that makes sure that the back isn't going to fall off. So a word about materials. The 8x10 Intrepid comes in two versions. It comes in a standard edition and this, the black edition. The difference between those is that certain components are either in the standard edition made of plywood, or in this edition they are 3D printed polymer. The components which are 3D printed on this camera and would be plywood on the standard edition are the focusing rack here on the base, the front standard and the rear standard with spring back. So if you can imagine, on the standard edition they would all be made from plywood. I don't think there's any difference in the functionality. I think if you bought the plywood one you'd be perfectly happy with it, and there's no real advantage in the black edition. I just think it looks nicer, and the cost difference is so minimal, maybe £60, $80, $90. I don't think that's much. In the grand scheme of things, 8x10 photography is quite expensive. Once you've started working with it, once you've bought some film and some lenses and all the other paraphernalia that goes with this camera, the difference between the standard edition and the black edition is absolutely minimal, and I would suggest go for the black edition. In conclusion then, the Intrepid 8x10 Mark III, in this case black edition, appears to be a well constructed and a well designed camera. It does have its limitations, the lack of movements in the rear standard for example, and the fact that the controls are, shall we say, rudimentary. I think this camera's got two things going for it. One is it's very light, which makes it very portable. It makes it far more likely that you're going to make those pictures that are more than 50 yards from where you've parked your car. The other thing is the price. If I wanted anything that was in any way more sophisticated than this, I'm probably going to have to pay twice, maybe 3 times what the Intrepid costs. And that's a lot of outlay. It's a lot of large format film. Credit to Intrepid here for making these cameras available and helping to keep large format photography alive. I'm going to be making an in-depth review of this camera once I've had a chance to use it, and I'll show you my results and give you a full review in maybe 3-4 months time. If you'd like to see that review, hit the subscribe button and then you'll be notified when I post it. In the meantime, thanks again for watching, and I'm hoping that you'll come back and see me again soon.